They called her redeemed. They called her lost. They called her follower. But what if Mary Magdalene was more than what we were told? What if, behind the tearful eyes and the whispered prayers, there was a secret role, a hidden layer, a truth buried? In plain sight, The Chosen shows us a woman loved by Christ and remembered by millions. But today we pull back the curtain to ask the question no one dares to speak. Was Mary Magdalene the spy who fed us the story of Jesus before anyone else even knew what was happening in the world of The Chosen? Mary Magdalene is not just another character passing through a holy timeline. She is the beating heart of the human story. She appears first as a broken figure, haunted by darkness. The one nobody trusts, the one society cast aside. The first time we see her, she is trapped by forces she cannot escape. And yet this is the woman chosen to be remembered above kings and priests. Her story does not begin in glory. It begins in shadows, and yet those shadows make her light burn even brighter. Mary Magdalene has always been controversial. Outside the screen, she is debated in churches, in classrooms, and in history books. Some say she was a sinner. Others call her a saint. Others believe she was erased from her true role because her presence was too powerful for the world to accept. But in The Chosen, she is given space to breathe. She is not a silent background figure. She walks into the center of the narrative, her eyes carrying the memory of her pain and the weight of her healing. She is not made perfect. She is made human. What makes her stand out is not only what she endures, but how she changes the people around her. She listens when others rush to speak. She notices the forgotten when others only see the crowd. She stands beside Jesus not as a shadow but as someone who reflects his compassion back to the audience. In every scene she is more than an extra. She is the witness. Through her we see what it feels like to be lost and then found through her. We understand why faith is not only about rules but about rescue. And that is where the secret lies. Because every spy has a cover. Every messenger has a reason for being in the right place at the right time. The Chosen makes us wonder if Mary was not only a disciple, but also the silent storyteller. She is the one who sees the things others miss. She is the one who carries moments in her heart and delivers them to us as though she were writing down the memories herself. Without her eyes, would we understand the pain of rejection, the shock of miracles, the courage of following a teacher who had no wealth or power? Without her, would we even feel the tenderness of the movement that changed the world? Mary Magdalene does not just stand in history, she translates it for us. She takes the chaos of the time and makes it personal. She turns distant stories into living moments. She feeds us what others overlook. And in that sense, she becomes more than a woman healed. Of demons, she becomes the spy who feeds us. The very truth of the gospel. Mary Magdalene is not just shown as a rescued woman in The Chosen. She is framed as someone who sees through walls of silence. She notices what the men overlook. She remembers the words that others dismiss. She pays attention to the looks, the pauses, the sighs that reveal more than speeches ever could. In every gathering she sits with eyes open, ears sharp, and a heart that feels deeper than most. And that makes her dangerous. Because in any story, the person who watches the closest is the one who knows the most. Think about it. A spy is not always the one with daggers and secrets. A spy can also be the one who listens quietly while everyone else argues. A spy is the one who does not need power because knowledge itself becomes their weapon. Mary is not given a sword. She is given perspective. She is not sent to command armies. She is sent to notice the softest cracks in human pride. She becomes the person who carries unspoken truths. And if we see her that way, then suddenly her role looks far bigger than anyone has admitted in The Chosen. She does not shout over the disciples. She leans into silence and turns it into meaning. That silence is what spies thrive on. A pause at the right moment is worth more than an army marching forward. Every time she looks at Jesus, there is a quiet recognition in her gaze, as if she is not only seeing a teacher, but also gathering evidence of something larger, something sacred that will later be revealed. She is both participant and observer, the dual role of someone who belongs, but also records. This is why her story feels like tea being spilled not with loud drama, but with whispered revelations. She spills it through the way she walks into a room, the way her presence forces others to face what they would rather ignore. She is the reminder that the kingdom of heaven does not belong to the powerful, but to the broken. She is the interruption in the pattern and the person who feeds us the real flavor of the movement. Her tea is not gossip. It is truth disguised as rumor. It is insight disguised as quiet support. If we frame her like this, then every scene becomes a coded message. Her healing is not only about personal freedom, but about her stepping into a role that others never expected. Her loyalty is not only about following Jesus, but about ensuring that his words survive through the witness of someone the world underestimated. The very act of her being there is like a secret note passed under the table. Look closely and you will see that she is writing the history of faith, not with ink but with presence. So the tea is brewing and Mary is holding the pot. She is not just sitting at the table. She is serving the story itself to us, sip by sip. Her words, her glances, her memories become the hidden channel of the entire tale. Without her, the audience would see only the outside events. With her, we get the inner pulse, and that is the true flavor of The Chosen. The flavor poured out by the spy who fed us. Every great story has someone who feeds the fire quietly, without ever standing in the spotlight. Mary Magdalene in The Chosen feels like that figure. She is not loud, like Peter, not intellectual, like Matthew, not forceful like James and John. Instead, she is the one who slips behind the curtain of noise and brings out something more valuable than miracles. She feeds us the story itself. She becomes the one who gathers the pieces when no one else is watching and gives them to us, as if she were the invisible narrator sitting among the disciples. The phrase "the spy who fed me" takes on a strange power here. Because what does a spy really do? A spy notices patterns that others miss. They gather intelligence piece by piece until the truth is sharper than a sword. That is exactly what Mary's role begins to resemble. The men chase after arguments and positions, but she listens to the heartbeats behind the words. She collects the unspoken emotions. She remembers the pain hidden beneath laughter. She feeds us these hidden truths, not with reports or scrolls, but with her very presence. When we watch her, there is always a sense that she sees more than she says. A glance at a disciple doubting, a pause when faith feels thin, a smile that lingers when a miracle takes place. She stores these moments and they reach us, not through dialogue, but through her face and her silence. It is as though she is translating heaven into something the audience can taste. She feeds us faith, but she also feeds us suspicion, questions, doubts, and whispers about what lies beneath. This makes her the perfect spy, not one working for an enemy, but one working for the audience. She becomes the inside source, slipping us secrets about what it truly means to follow Jesus. While the others fight over who is greatest, Mary shows us who is broken. While the others push for control, Mary reminds us of surrender. She is feeding us information in a way that reshapes the entire story. Without her, the tale would be only action. With her, it becomes confession. In The Chosen, her role almost feels coded, like a hidden message written between the lines. She is both insider and outsider. She is one of them, but also set apart. She blends into the group, but also shines quietly in every shot. That duality is the mark of a spy, someone who belongs everywhere, but never fully belongs anywhere. And it is in that tension that her true role emerges. She feeds us truth from behind, The veil, and so the spy who fed me is not a villain but a guardian. She is the one who makes sure we know not only what happened, but how it felt. She transforms history into intimacy. She turns scripture into heartbeat. And in doing so, she reminds us that sometimes the one who is overlooked is actually the one who knows the most. What makes Mary Magdalene fascinating in The Chosen is not just what she shows, but what she stirs. Her presence creates ripples that the audience feels even when the other characters ignore them. That is the seed of conflict, because a spy does not simply watch. A spy disrupts without anyone realizing it. And Mary does this not by schemes or tricks, but by her very existence. She challenges the structure of power around her without lifting a finger. The disciples wrestle with pride. They argue about rank. They stumble over their doubts. Yet every time Mary appears, the story tilts slightly. She unsettles their confidence. She reminds them that faith is not about being the strongest, but about being the most desperate. She is living proof that grace can flip a life upside down, and that makes the proud uneasy. It is the same tension a spy creates when walking into a guarded room. Someone suddenly knows more than the rest, and no one can put their finger on it. Fans of The Chosen have felt this tension too. Some celebrate the way Mary is placed at the center. They argue she represents the soul of the audience watching from the outside. Others worry that she is being elevated too high, that she takes a place. History never gave her that. The writers are creating a new hierarchy with her as a key figure. In that conflict lies the real drama, because spies in every story walk the thin line between truth and manipulation, between loyalty and betrayal. And Mary in this series is caught on that same tightrope. She is not perfect. Her stumbles, her relapses, her fears make her raw and human. But it is those flaws that make her essential. They make her more real than the disciples who argue about rules. She becomes the crack through which the audience can breathe. And yet that very flaw creates tension. Was she chosen to remind us of redemption? Or was she chosen to tell us something the others never could? Was she written as a disciple, or as the hidden voice feeding us all along? This is where the spy metaphor grows sharper, because a spy is always questioned. Whose side are they on? What is their true mission? Mary is followed by these questions even when unspoken. She walks with Jesus, but she also walks with scars. She stands with the disciples, but she also stands apart. She belongs, yet she does not fully fit. That unease is the energy of conflict, the subtle reminder that her role might be more complex than anyone dares admit. So tension lives in her silence, and conflict breathes in her presence. She forces the audience to see faith not as a trophy, but as a fight. She forces the disciples to see weakness not as shame, but as doorway. And she forces the world to ask if maybe, just maybe, the story of Jesus was first fed to us, not by those with power, but by the one who carried both wounds and wonder in the same heart. Every secret begins with a whisper, and Mary Magdalene in The Chosen carries whispers like they are gold. She does not announce herself as a leader, yet she is trusted. She does not try to explain every mystery yet. Her silence feels louder than sermons. That is where the secrets start to spill. Not in loud reveals, but in the way her story bends what we thought we knew. One of the biggest secrets is how the series reshapes her from the margins of scripture into the heartbeat of the narrative. For centuries, her name was buried in rumor. Some called her a fallen woman. Some erased her from memory altogether. But here she rises not only as a follower but as a witness, and that shift is not small. It is a deliberate act of storytelling, a decision to let her carry weight that history once tried to strip away. It feels like a classified file finally being opened for the public. And what does she do with that file? She hands it to us in pieces, in her tears when she remembers her past, in her laughter when she tastes freedom again, in her silence when she looks at Jesus, as if seeing more than the others. Dare to admit each of these moments is a leak, a slow drip of truth feeding us not with theories, but with emotions. She does not shout the secrets, she breathes them. Some fans wonder if the writers are hiding another layer in plain sight. If Mary is not just a disciple in the story, but the narrator in disguise, the spy who feeds the future with every glance and gesture. She is the one who holds the emotional archive. So when the men forget, she remembers. When the world dismisses, she records. When the disciples scatter, she still carries the memory. The secrets are not hidden in scrolls. They are hidden in her. And this is where the tension sharpens again. Because a spy is always suspected of knowing too much. Does Mary hold truths that the others never grasped? Does she carry knowledge that history tried to bury? Does she become not just the first witness to the resurrection, but the first true historian of the movement? If so, then the tea she spills is not gossip, but prophecy. She is feeding us the future, wrapped in the present. Every time she steps onto the screen, it feels like another code is being cracked. Her role is more than redemption. It is revelation. She turns her brokenness into a weapon against silence. She turns her survival into a lens for us to see the hidden corners of faith. And as she spills her secrets, we realize we are not just watching a character. We are being fed from the table of someone who knows the story from the inside out. The closer we look at Mary Magdalene in The Chosen, the more she feels like a figure holding a coded message sealed behind her eyes. She is not only a witness, but a gatekeeper. She is the one who knows where the cracks are and how the light breaks through. Those who see her simply as a background character miss the cipher. She is the key that unlocks the emotional depth of the entire story. A spy never tells you everything. A spy leaves breadcrumbs leading you to discover the truth for yourself. That is what Mary does in the series. She does not declare long speeches about her faith. She lets you feel it. She does not explain why Jesus matters. She shows it through the tremor of her voice, the tension in her silence, the tears that fall when no words will do. Every piece of her story becomes a code for the audience to solve. And when we connect them, the picture becomes clear. Her relapse when she falls back into old pain is not only weakness, it is the hidden message that faith is not perfect. It stumbles, it bleeds, it breaks, and then rises again. Her return to the group is not just about healing. It is about revealing the nature of grace as something alive, not static. That is intelligence gathered from the field, raw and risky, the kind of truth only someone on the inside could deliver. That is her feeding us not a polished report, but a field note covered in scars. And so we begin to realize Mary is the one smuggling truths past the guards of tradition. She moves them into our hands without permission. When history tried to silence her, the story brings her back. When theology tried to define her, the series lets her remain a mystery. When others wanted her to stand aside, she walks into the frame with eyes that say, "I know more than you think." That is the power of a spy and the poetry of a witness wrapped in one. The deeper secret she spills is that faith is not about perfect men leading crowds. It is about broken people daring to be seen. It is about the voices who were almost erased becoming the very carriers of memory. It is about the spies of history, the overlooked, the underestimated, the ones who fed us the truth when no one else could. That is why her story is not only spiritual, but subversive. She exposes the lie that only power shapes history and shows us that sometimes the forgotten shape it more. So when we watch The Chosen with Mary Magdalene at its center, we are not simply watching a drama. We are watching a coded transmission from the past. A reminder that the most powerful secrets are not shouted from pulpits but whispered in silence. We are not being entertained. We are being fed. The spy has done her work, and the table is set. The question now is, do we recognize what she has given us, or will the secret slip Away again into the shadows. Every story ends with a final message. And in The Chosen, Mary Magdalene feels like the one delivering it. Not with a scroll, not with a speech, but with her very existence. She is the last voice you hear, even when she is silent. She is the secret source who has already slipped the note into your hand before you even realized it. A spy always leaves behind a final transmission. And Mary's transmission is the story itself. Think of what she gave us. She fed us the humanity of Jesus, not through arguments, but through the way she saw him. She fed us the reality of grace, not through doctrine, but through her brokenness and her return. She fed us the reminder that those the world calls unworthy can become the ones who carry the greatest truth. Her role is not an accident. It is a signal, a message from the shadows of history whispering that sometimes the story survives, only because someone unexpected dared to tell it. This is why the spy metaphor fits so powerfully. She is not an enemy agent. She is the inside voice planted by Providence to make sure the truth reaches us. She walks through the story unnoticed by kings and scholars, yet her presence is the reason we understand the cost of mercy, the depth of forgiveness, the weight of redemption. That is intelligence more valuable than any battlefield victory. Her tea is the kind you cannot forget once you taste it. And so we arrive at the end. The tea has been spilled. The spy has completed her mission. But the question remains, what will we do with what we were fed? Will we let it fade as background entertainment, or will we treat it like the secret it really is? Will we recognize Mary not only as a disciple, but as the first informer of faith, the one who delivered the gospel with her life long before it was written on paper? This is the closing file, the last coded page handed to us. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the silence where she speaks most clearly. The silence that says, "I was there, I saw it, I carried it, and now it is yours." That is the final transmission of the spy who fed me. And now the choice is placed on the table. What do you believe about Mary Magdalene? Was she only a follower? Was she the hidden historian? Was she the secret voice feeding us the heartbeat of the story? Or was she all of these at once? That decision is not written in the show, it is written in us. The spy has done her work. The rest is up to you.